Hey guys, imagine a life where you are supposed to be cursed, where you'll be forgotten by each person whom you have met. Imagine a life where you are deemed to be living till eternity and no one still remembers you. And that is what exactly you'll be finding in The Invisible Life of ADDIE by V.E.Schwab. And today here I am to be sharing with you the review of this book. So without further delay, let's dive into the video. Hey guys, this is Achyut Murari. I am a Medico and an Instagram poet. I will be sharing about books and personal development tips over this channel. So make sure you're sticking by here. I have actually read this book along with Lepakshi, who owns the channel What's Booking, and I just cannot thank her enough for persuading me and kind of encouraging me throughout reading the book. You can also check the review of the same book over her channel out of the link which I'll be tagging in the description so that you can easily find that. So now proceeding to the plot synopsis. The plot basically starts with ADDIE, of course, as the title suggests. She has been born in a village called the Villon in France in 1600s or 1640s somewhere, where the story starts with her being a happy-go-lucky girl without anything to be fretting, nothing to complain, and a very happy life. She gradually grows and comes into a marriageable age where her parents wants her to be married off to a widower who indeed has 2 children. So ADDIE typically tries to run off from her wedding site and she kind of goes into the forest where she tries to persuade the darker gods. These darker gods are specifically when propitiated at the night time, they give us boons, but these boons typically turn into curses. So ADDIE actually asks the darker god for a happier life. So for a happier life in return, she has to trade something, and the darker god actually asks her soul in exchange for a happier life. Now ADDIE, of course, she cannot trade her soul, and she is kind of a really strong woman. So she denies of trading her soul to the darker god, and the darker god eventually curses this girl, that is ADDIE, that is in this world no one can ever remember her. She literally is invisible, and that is the way the title suggests, The Invisible Life of ADDIE. As simple as that. So the whole thought of this is really great. I really appreciate V.E.Schwab to be coming up with such a great thought. It is completely fictitious, dark, and quite a fantasy things, quite a romantic things, and many more into this book. Then the plot proceeds further when eventually ADDIE finds out a person called Henry who indeed remembers her. The twist comes when the darker god, who ADDIE calls him as Luke, also falls in love with ADDIE, and how does the story unveil itself is what the book is all about. So I really loved the whole plot. I am into that. And now coming to the review proper, I felt that this book kind of was really extended, like it was too much stretch. I felt that for a very small plot of what I have shared with you, you need not write a bunch of pages for them. There were many poetic lines subtly told into this book, and I absolutely adore the narrative of V.E.Schwab. Yet I find that there were many instances which were repetitive, and that is what I would love to call it as, repetitive. And there were many lines and many a text, much of a story which was kind of told again and again to us. Maybe that is V.E.Schwab's way of actually putting the plot into our mind. There are 2 best parts of this book which I absolutely want to acknowledge in here. The first one being, the book goes on with a lot of spurts. Whenever you are going into the plot of this book, there is an instance where you are absolutely captivated. The plot takes huge turns and there are many things which the author reveals. Then there is completely a huge plateau. The thing goes on, the text just goes on, and you are absolutely bored. And then suddenly there is again a twist being coming, and then there is again a plot change, and again there is a plateau. So I felt that the whole book was going on in a waves-like format. It was kind of spurts, like you find much interesting things suddenly, and then you are completely floored off with all the interesting things. The text just goes on and then suddenly you will be finding a very beautiful, very lovely scene in the book. So I found that maybe this was V.E.Schwab's way of writing and way of persuading the reader to be engrossed into the plot. Then again, I found that this book has a lot of poetic lines into this book, and which I found were really awesome. The one book which I also felt in the same way was The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. The book also has a lot of poetic lines into the text, and you feel that you're actually listening to some of the greatest romantic poets, maybe way back from the 12th century or the 13th century. But I also found that maybe using all those metaphors and a lot of text, somewhere you'll be forgetting the plot. You as a reader, while reading this book, have to be very careful in remembering the plot and kind of repetitively memorizing the plot. Only then can you actually understand till when the plot has proceeded, or else you are completely lost or engrossed into the lot of text which was being used into this book. And while I was reading this book, I desperately wanted this book to finish off because there was too much amount of thing going on in this book and I did not want that. But when the book was actually ending, I really wanted this book to stretch more and more. I don't know, this is really a kind of weird reason why I found this book pretty captivating and one of the very finest fantasy books or the fiction books which I have read till date. All the story revolves around love, lust, requirements, and a very less of betrayal. So I found this book a mixture of all these emotions, and that way it has been told to the reader, that is the narration by V.E.Schwab, is already still awesome. I felt a paramount change in the way of writing of V.E.Schwab from Vicious to that of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The story which was being told in the book called Vicious is completely different, and the way of writing too was different because it has a lot of action scenes going on in that, and it has a lot of chunk of plot going on into that book. But in The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, it is not like that. The plot is completely stationary. Only the weight has been built clearly with using words, metaphors, phrases, and a lot of poetic lines is what the author has done into this book. So that is why maybe you will find this book too much thick to be reading and too much little to understand. But gradually, you will completely fall in love with the character of Addie LaRue. I can bet that you will always be in a state of scolding or mocking Luke, that is a darker god, because he has brought much pain into the life of Addie and Henry, and you completely sympathize with the life of Henry eventually. I share that the ending of the book left me into tears. I was literally crying because at that juncture I felt that the way of writing was much more painful. You kind of are into the plot and you cannot resist yourself to be crying. I wondered that this book will be also having a sequel coming to that. Well, I would be really waiting to know what would have actually happened or the backstory of Luke and a lot more. But I felt that it was not a necessary thing. A sequel for this book was kind of not very much required. It can be really a good standalone book with what it has within itself, and that is more than enough. Now coming to the spoilers section. So the spoiler which I wanted to share with you is about the boons which were granted to Henry. Henry was actually able to see Addie LaRue only because even Henry had traded his soul to the darker god. The boon which Henry has got is he can be loved. He need to be loved by everyone. That is, in the past story, all the people he loves gradually go away from him. They kind of die. Maybe some of them leave him, and a lot more. So he's all alone in his life. So in this process, Henry wants the darker god to grant him a boon where everyone can love him. So because Henry and Addie, both of them have somewhere traded a lot of things with the darker god, they both can be into love with each other, and Henry is actually able to remember the story and the past life and the presence of Addie LaRue. So I feel that this kind of coincidence was a huge mind-blowing act into the book. The spoiler which I wanted to share, this is completely heart-wrenching one, and that is the story doesn't end with a happy-go-lucky way. I expected this book to be ending with Addie and Henry ending up with a happy life forever because they both understand well with each other. But the story completely changed when from the ending part of the book, almost Luke had entered, and the character time given to Luke was enormously increased, and kind of Luke eventually has fallen in love with Addie herself. He doesn't want Addie to be ending up with Henry, and Addie actually trades her soul in exchange for the Henrys so that Henry can survive, and she indefinitely need to be with Luke till the time he wants her to be with him. So this was the darkest ending I can ever imagine. I did not want the book to be ending in that way, but it left me heartbroken, and this always wanted me to wait for the sequel much more because I really wanted to know the answers. Why would have Luke done all these things? And apart from that, what made Addie to take this decision to completely break the heart of the readers? Well, I do not love to gauge the books, but I would certainly give this book about 3.5 stars out of 5. And a pretty reasonable rating because cutting down 1 star because the book is too long to be reading. Somewhere you will find that you want to really put this book down, and a half star will be cut down because of the time transition. That is, Addie had actually been born in somewhere in 1640s, and the story takes place parallelly into 2000s in the New York. So the whole thing, when they go into parallel, the whole transition between the time gap and how Addie would have learned or accustomed to the enormous changes in all the 3 centuries is somewhere lost in this book, which is completely not explained. So that's all, guys. This was my collective review of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So guys, if at all you want a detailed review to be shared with you in a written format, you can always head up to the link in the description below where I have shared the link to the book review blog which I usually write, and I'll be back with a much more beautiful book review, or maybe the current reads which I am going to review soon. So till then, take care, stay safe, bye bye.